Secretary Chu, I know you're familiar with the Idaho National Laboratory and its two missions of obviously research and of cleanup, and the Department of Energy very wisely has separated those two over the last decade or so. And you also know that the state has had some difficulty with the department. In fact, we litigated the issue of the cleanup over at the laboratory. And I'm wondering if you're familiar with the agreement that was entered into and that was court approved that resolved the issue of cleanup over at the INL site in eastern Idaho.
No, I'm not familiar with the details.
Okay. Well, Secretary, you're not going to be able to answer my questions then, but I'm going to ask you to follow up on it. Let me tell you briefly, after a considerable amount of litigation, the state and the DOE entered into an agreement whereby the DOE would remove all of essentially the nuclear waste that was left over from the Cold War. And the INL played a role just as Rocky Flats and Hanford and all the other sites did. We're the only one with an agreement. And the DOE agreed that they would remove the waste. They're doing well. They're keeping up with the contract. The waste is being removed to the WIP site. Unfortunately, there's material that is not qualified for the WIP site, and it was anticipated that that would go into Yucca Mountain. Now, I understand in answer to Senator McCain's question, you indicated that the United States has no plans to activate Yucca Mountain. And so the question I have for you, which I suppose you can't answer at this point, is what are you going to do about the contract that requires you to remove materials that are of such a level that they can't go into the WIP site?
Well, this goes to the sense of urgency that Senators McCain and Murkowski talk about in terms of developing a improved approach to dealing with high-level nuclear waste, and so it's certainly going to be. We'll be looking at this very intensely over this next year.
But Secretary, with all due respect, I appreciate that, but I can tell you that this contract is very clear, and it is in the form of a court order that it has to be moved. Do you have any thoughts right now as to where? If you're not going to go to Yucca Mountain, and this whole thing with Yucca Mountain not going to be used is a relatively new thing. Certainly, when somebody made that decision, when the new administration made that decision, somebody must have had some thoughts as to how you were going to keep your agreements on removing the high-level stuff from places like Idaho, where you were required to by court order.
In addition to that, I should also add that we have obligations to the utility companies for similar disposition of their waste, and so.
But with the utility companies, all you have to do is pay a fine, and that's been going on for some time. Not so with the Idaho contract. You've got to move it. So, what was going through people's mind when they said we're not going to use Yucca? Where are you thinking you're going to go?
I think, as I said before, that there are other options that we will have to look at, and quite frankly, I think there would be better options. But at this time, I'm not willing. Again, I would want to seek the advice of some deeply knowledgeable people on this.
Well, these options you referred to, can you tell us what these options are so that we can be thinking about them too?
I think it would first. It's going to be a mixture of short-term sites. Well, there is several layers of short-term sites, of longer-term, and then finally final disposition. I think it probably will have to be geographically distributed in some way. Other, one location, one site would probably not work.
But these are sites that you have not located or identified or
that's correct.
Gotten at this point.
That's correct.
Have you got an idea of how long this is going to take? Because you're under some real time constraints in the Idaho agreement.
As I said, that we will be assembling this and getting a report sometime this year. And I agree, there are real time constraints.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.